Today we're going to talk about the difference between a conventionally raised egg and a pasture-raised egg and the labels in between and what they mean and what you get out of these eggs. Now, the typical egg, as you can see here, has something really wrong with it. Just kidding. This is from the Easter egg hunt that our neighbor had for our daughter, and I did not attempt to cook it. However, I did cook this egg. This is just your typical conventional, no label, like cage-free or free-range or pasture-raised egg they get at the grocery store. Basically the cheapest kind you can get. I have a lot to say on this topic, but I'm going to save the commentary for the latter part of the video for those of you who just want to know the quick nitty-gritty of the difference between conventional industrial egg versus a cage-free egg versus a free-range egg versus a pasture-raised egg. Here's the best I can do. When I was an environmental reporter for television, I was surprised how many people did not know the difference, especially between, say, cage-free and free-range and pastured. So many people think that cage-free means the chicken's out running on a pasture, and that's not the case at all. So basically, if it says nothing on the label, it's just like the eggs you're looking at right here, and I'm gonna cook three kinds, actually. I'm going to cook conventional, like the very, very basic, probably caged egg. They don't advertise that, but that's probably what these are. Cook that next to a cage-free egg, and then the eggs that my friends raise, which are like primo pasture-raised eggs, and you'll see what they look like. But as far as the labels go, here's what you need to know. The conventional industrial egg, which is a bird that lives in a cage, is basically that, a laying hen that lives in a cage. Cage-free means that the bird is not in a cage, but whether it has a humane life, considering whatever you think is humane, that's not necessarily so clear. So a cage-free hen doesn't necessarily have to have a ton of room to run around. Basically, you know, there are chicken houses that could have upwards of 40,000 hens in them, and they're all crammed into a tight little space, and they live in these chicken houses, and they don't have access to the outdoors. And you may not consider that humane. I don't know, maybe somebody else doesn't care. But just so you know, that's what a cage-free egg starts at. Now, if it's certified humane, what it means is basically I think that it has about 1.5 feet of square footage per bird to run around. Mommy! I need my mommy whenever I talk about eggs, don't you? How do you say egg?
Egg.
Egg, yeah. So in my skillet, we now have the conventional egg next to the cage-free egg. And I do think the cage-free egg looks like it has a yolk that's darker. We'll talk about the color of the yolk in a second. So this is the carton, and the label says grade AA, fresh, which means nothing. Non-GMO, which does mean something. That means that the chickens are not fed GMO feed. Usually that would be like a GMO corn or GMO soy. And I don't want GMO feed in the chickens for a host of reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now. So I appreciate it's non-GMO. That's a step up for me than conventional. And cage-free. On their website, they say their brown eggs are cage-free, 300 milligrams plus of total omega-3 fatty acids, 100 milligrams plus of DHA, excellent sources of vitamin D and E. Hens are fed all natural, vegetarian diet, no hormones or antibiotics. Now these are just cage-free, and cage-free does not mean the hens have access to the outdoors, but I called this farm in Idaho and they told me their hens do have access to the outdoors, but right now the USDA is requiring the chickens stay inside because of bird flu. But this is a reminder that you really don't know what's going on unless you call or visit a farm. Now let's talk real fast about free range before we get to pasture raised, okay? Because free range does not mean pasture raised. To me, free range is not significantly different from cage free. Maybe for you it is, but for me it's really not. Not in my interpretation, and definitely not necessarily for nutrition. It may be for the way the animal lives in the environment, but here's where it gets kind of tricky. Free range does mean that the bird has access to the outdoors, but it doesn't mean the bird goes outdoors, okay? And it doesn't mean that outdoor area is anything of significance. From chicken farmers that I've heard of, and according to the regulations, which there really aren't much for like what the outdoor area has to look like, a chicken that's free range may never even go outside because it doesn't want to. If it's raised in a darker inside environment, it may see the hold of the outdoors and it's like, oh, I don't want to go out there. Why would I go out there? So it may not go out and eat the bugs and the grasses that you would want it to eat for that extra nutritional content at all. and it does have access, but does it use it? It may not. Also, unless it says Certified Humane, like I said, it doesn't have specification for how large the size of the outdoor area is for the bird. Certified Humane does have a specification for that. For free range, I think it's a couple square feet per bird outside. But like I said, you just don't know if the bird's using the outside. Once again, I can't say this enough. This is why labels, to me, I'm like post-label. That's some people say that we live in postmodernism. I say I live in post-labelism, because I just don't think labels really mean a whole lot anymore. In some cases, maybe they'll get you out of sort of egregious situations that you may not want to be into, but they don't help you understand the nuances. So really, that's what free range means. The difference between free range and cage free is a cage-free hen doesn't necessarily have access to the outdoors. A free-range hen does. Whether it's using it is a mystery, and whether that outdoor area is significant is a mystery unless you call and ask. The reason you would want a chicken to have access to the outdoors, again, is because chickens are not vegetarian. You'll see a lot of times like fed all vegetarian diet, and that's like promoted. Well, I don't want my chicken to be a vegetarian, because chickens are actually omnivores. They eat bugs, and the bugs give them added nutrition, and that goes into us as a benefit when we eat chicken or we eat their eggs. So I want them eating bugs, and I also want them out eating grasses, because there's different nutritional content that they get from different grasses. I'm going to show you a study from Penn State University in a second that these researchers looked at how different the nutritional content was in eggs from pasture-raised chicken versus your conventional chicken egg. So let's get into the pasture-raised eggs now, okay? Take a look here at my skillet again. These are the eggs that my friends raise, and I'm going to crack it next to the cage-free egg and the industrial egg. Pasture raised is basically what it sounds like, kind of what my kid's doing right now, running around on pasture. With the pasture raised label, it's just, if not more important, to do your research, because it means really even less from a government regulatory standpoint. To get the Certified Humane label with pasture raised, that comes with specifications. But again, can't say this enough, visit or call. Filing the paperwork to get a specific label can be really cost prohibitive for some of the best small farmers, which is why they don't even do labels. And that's why you go direct with them. You get a better product at a better price, and you know for sure where it's coming from. A dozen of my friends' eggs, which are like the highest quality eggs, the most nutritious eggs you could ever get, we pay them $6 cash. Okay. Do you know how much those eggs at the grocery store cost right here? These eggs? $5.99. So plus tax, I actually paid more for this dozen of eggs than I did for my neighbor's $6 eggs. And I'm probably getting, they say 7 times more nutrition. Let's even cut that in half to 3.5, 4 times more nutrition for the same price. So this is why I say, look into it. And say it was more expensive, okay? The way I look at food too is you may pay twice, but if you're getting 7 times the value, then you're getting more, right? You're getting 7 times the nutrition. You're getting a better value. I'm going to read the text that my friend sent me about what they feed their chickens and how they're cared for. All right. We soak a premium layer feed that has vitamins, minerals, probiotics, kelp, and no GMO. The grains are grown locally. The source we use tries to be as organic as possible. This allows for better digestion and less feed. We also give them sprouted triticale and barley to unlock the nutrients and life force from the seed. In the winter, we feed some alfalfa and fresh greens, as well as fat from harvested clean source sheep or beef. Chickens love fat and meat. No citrus is ever given. Some suggest one gets as much as 7 times the nutrient as one would with ordinary feed. No corn or soy is fed. We harvest some sunflower seeds additionally as a treat in the late summer. They also are free range and eat a lot of grass, knotweed, kale, chickweed, and insects, among other things. The eggs are fertilized by our rooster, giving a balance of yin and yang. Their water is UV filtered but full of minerals. Warm water is given in the winter, and the coop is heavily insulated, preventing stress to the birds. So here's a study from Penn State University looking at the difference in nutritional content of eggs from pastured chickens. It says that basically over a 6-week period, they rotated 25 chickens from grass to red and white clover to alfalfa, grazing them for 2 weeks on each species, and designed a mobile chicken coop to do so they could move them around and rotate them. And that during each rotation, egg samples were taken and analyzed for levels of unsaturated fat and vitamins in their yolks. And then the researchers compared the eggs produced on each section of pasture to eggs taken from chickens raised in commercial cages on a typical grain diet. They found that the pastured birds produced about 3 times more omega-3 fat in their eggs than did birds raised on an industrial diet. Pasturing also boosted levels of vitamins A and E. On average, we saw about twice as much vitamin E and 40% more vitamin A in the yolks of pasture-fed birds than in caged birds. The longer the animals were on pasture, the more vitamins they produced. Now, some people will tell you that the color of the egg does not really matter. The color of the yolk doesn't matter. It's all the same. I don't really buy that. And the people who are in the mindset that it does signify something, what they're talking about is carotenoids. And so the chicken being raised on high carotenoid diet, if I'm saying that word correctly. And essentially, if you look up what carotenoids have, which I'm doing right now just to make sure I get it right, strong antioxidant properties and have been shown to prevent age-related blindness. The color of the yolk shows us that these nutrients are making it into the egg. So that's just another reason to care about where your egg comes from. So back to my frying pan here. You may look at this and just say it's just eggs. And I totally understand that, but we eat a lot of eggs. Between the 3 of us, my husband travels for work, but when he's here, I don't know, we might go through a half a dozen eggs a day. So think about that, half a dozen eggs a day for just 1 week. That's 35 eggs. Multiply that by 4 weeks out of the month. That's over 100 eggs. That's like 130 eggs a month. Over time, this stuff starts to accumulate. It does make a difference. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times we overlook little things like eggs. They're just a little egg, What does it matter? I should think about big things like the presidential election or I don't know, not using bleach. Well, that's great. We don't use bleach, but we use hydrogen peroxide as a cleaning product, and that's great. And that's really an important, change to think about the stuff on the outside. But I think we sometimes overlook the stuff we put on the inside, and we just go for what's easy. And it took me a decade to really get to this point. So it's no judgment, just to try to help educate because I've been there. Final thought: I was an environmental reporter for a while, and I got to learn a lot about wildlife. And it always cracks me up when people think about the wild as like this very romantic place because it's pretty violent, right? I mean, the animals kill each other and sometimes even kill their own babies. But the thing I learned about the wild is that, one thing I never saw in the wild was an apex predator rounding up more than it needed and keeping the animals, its prey, confined and then injecting it with antibiotics and stuff to keep it alive in an unnatural environment. It ate meat. The apex predators eat meat. They're not sitting around like feeling bad, obviously, for killing an animal. But they also live in a way that allows their prey to live its life cycle, basically, to live its life, and then it takes it. And that's the way the wild works. And so I have, at least in my own life, wanted to try to model my eating behavior more and more as an apex predator. That's kind of how I consider myself. So I would like my prey to express its life cycle the way that it would if I wasn't around. The best to the best ability we can. Obviously, climate and water and feed and all that stuff. It does make a difference. You can't do everything all the time. So I get that. It's not perfect, but as close to it as possible because I think that's better for me. And I guess it's selfish at the end of the day, but there are all kinds of other reasons like we discussed. The environment and knowing that you're supporting your local economy. So I hope this was a helpful video for you all and would love for you to leave me a comment about what you think is I don't know, the easiest or maybe most practical way for people who are looking for resources to get into this. Maybe you could leave a comment for them or for us. Eventually we're going to have our own chickens. We're just not going to do it this year. But it's been quite a journey and it's not something that just happened overnight for me. Someday I'll do a video about how I started waking up to food. And I really do think one of the reasons that I'm so interested in the food system is because I think it really reflects a lot of the problems that we have right now as consumers that have been created by our own desire to disengage with our lives and just have somebody else do it for us. And so we'll talk about that in another video. But for now, I hope you have an excellent rest of the day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.